We start with breaking news tonight. Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States, died this afternoon at his home in Plains, Georgia. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Alyssa Azara. He celebrated his 100th birthday back in October and was the oldest living president of all time. Here's ABC's Christiane Cordero.
Tributes to former President Jimmy Carter began pouring in almost immediately after the news of his passing. President Biden, in his address to the nation this evening, said to know the 39th president was to know that in his core, he never stopped being a Sunday school teacher in Plains, Georgia.
What I find extraordinary about Jimmy Carter, though, is that millions of people all around the world, all over the world, feel they lost a friend as well, even though they never met him. And that's because Jimmy Carter lived a life measured not by words, but by his deeds.
Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton add Carter was guided by his faith. President Carter lived to serve others until the very end. President-elect Donald Trump acknowledged their political differences before writing, "The challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude." From former President Barack Obama, quote, "Michelle and I send our thoughts and prayers to the Carter family and everyone who loved and learned from this remarkable man." And Habitat for Humanity, an organization the Carters began volunteering with more than 40 years ago, writing today, "We are grateful for the incredible impact the Carters have had on Habitat and on the families who have benefited from their shining example." Jimmy Carter, who was awarded the Presidential Medal of Honor in 1999 and the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, talked about how he hoped to be remembered.
I'd say maybe peace and human rights. I kept the country at peace for 4 years and promoted peace for other people like Egypt and Israel and opened up new avenues of commerce and trade between us and China and that sort of things. And we've been champions of human rights. So I think those two things are the ones that I hope to be remembered.
He will lie in repose at Georgia's state capitol and then at the U.S. Capitol, followed by a service at Washington's National Cathedral. His final resting place will be in the backyard of his home in Plains, Georgia, next to his wife, Rosalind. They were married 77 years when she passed. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
Following his passing, ABC 6 News spoke with a former White House aide of President Carter. Margaret McKenna is originally from Central Falls and worked for Carter in the White House. She says it's important to remember the work the former president did that remains prevalent today, especially for women's rights.
Well, first thing goes to my mind is obviously sadness of the loss of this great man and great model of integrity and leadership and courage. And I will say there's nobody who modeled more integrity in that office and ethics than that man.
Meanwhile, Governor Dan McKee is reacting to Jimmy Carter's death tonight, saying in a statement in part, quote, "Today our nation lost a great man, a compassionate leader, and a true humanitarian. In everything he did, President Carter put service above self. He believed fiercely in lifting up others and lending a hand to those in need, an example for all of us to follow." Prior to today, the former president had been in hospice care since 2023. ABC's Karen Travers has a look back on his life.
When Americans elected Jimmy Carter the 39th president of the United States, it was a vote for something new.
So help me God.
James Earl Carter was born in Plains, Georgia, October 1st, 1924. In 1946, he graduated near the top of his class at the U.S. Naval Academy, married Rosalind Smith, and served on the nation's developing nuclear submarine program. He returned to Georgia to run the family business, a peanut farm, and launched a political career that took him from the local school board to the governor's mansion.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Then, in 1976,
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
Carter defeated Gerald Ford in a race for the Oval Office. Carter's single term was marked by a lagging economy and a nationwide energy shortage. Inflation climbed to 15% in 1980, and Carter's approval rating plunged. He blamed the nation's problems on what he called a malaise in the American spirit.
It is a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will.
Internationally, President Carter was influential in efforts to make peace in the Middle East, encouraging a treaty between Israel and Egypt with the Camp David Accords. But the event that seemed to doom his presidency was the taking of 52 American hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Iran. They were held for 444 days, released just hours after Carter left office. Yet Carter launched a post-presidency that many would consider more productive than his 4 years in office. In 1981, he established the Carter Center, sponsoring programs to promote human rights in the Third World and monitoring elections in developing democracies. The former president and his wife volunteered their time and energy building low-income housing for Habitat for Humanity. In 1997, Carter was asked about his legacy.
But I would hope that 50 years from now, whatever, that people would associate the words peace and human rights with my name.
It was this work that in 1999 earned him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and in 2002, the Nobel Peace Prize, leaving many Americans remembering him best for his achievements after the White House. Taryn Travers, ABC News.
Rhode Island's congressional delegation also reflecting on Carter's presidency. Senator Jack Reed said in a statement, quote, "From the Naval Academy to the White House to Habitat for Humanity, Jimmy Carter led a life of public service and personal integrity. Jimmy Carter was a man of uncommon principle, compassion, caring, kindness, and faith who truly lived his values and made the world a better place." Congressman Gabe Amos said, quote, "With the passing of President Jimmy Carter, we mourn a legend in public service and the North Star of what it means to truly love thy neighbor. I will remember his devout focus on global human rights, commitment to ethical leadership, and steadfast faith in the better angels of America. May he rest in peace." And Congressman Seth Magaziner also releasing a statement saying, quote, "President Carter will be remembered as an honorable man who led with honesty and decency. May his example inspire generations to come." The former president made a few stops in the Ocean State throughout his career. The Associated Press reports that back in 1976, he came to Warwick for the Memorial Day parade just before the primary election. And in this second photo, President Carter is joined by his daughter, Amy, and his wife, Rosalind, while taking a tour of Brown University. Amy briefly did attend Brown.